The rain poured heavily that night, splashing against the sleek windshield of Alexander Grant's black Bentley as it hummed along the quiet outskirts of the city. Alexander wasn't just any man, he was a billionaire, a visionary who built his empire from nothing. Yet despite his wealth, his life felt painfully empty. Tonight, he was driving home from a charity gala, his mind still echoing with the fake smiles and shallow conversations he had endured. But then, something caught his eye, a small figure huddled by a pile of roadside trash, barely visible in the dim streetlights. Slowing his car. Alexander's heart tightened. It was a young woman, soaked to the bone, shivering violently. Her clothes were torn, her face pale, and her hair clung to her cheeks in wet strands. She wasn't moving much, and for a terrifying moment, he thought she might be unconscious. Without hesitation, he stopped, stepped into the rain, and rushed to her side. Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice gentle but urgent. She stirred weakly, her lips trembling. "Please don't leave me here," she whispered, her voice so faint it was almost swallowed by the rain. Alexander's instincts took over. He lifted her into his arms, feeling how feather-light she was, as if she hadn't eaten in days. Her head rested against his chest as he carried her to his car. The warmth of the Bentley's interior was a stark contrast to the freezing rain outside. She clutched the edge of his coat as if it were her only lifeline. Driving away from that lonely roadside, Alexander glanced at her. Her eyes, though tired and pained, had an unmistakable spark, something fragile yet beautiful. He didn't know who she was or what had happened to her, but deep inside, he knew this meeting was no accident. At his private estate, he called his personal doctor, ordering an emergency visit. As staff hurried to prepare a guest room, Alexander sat beside her, wrapping her in a soft blanket. "You're safe now," he assured her, though he sensed her fear ran deeper than the cold. When the doctor arrived and examined her, the truth began to emerge. She was malnourished, bruised, and suffering from exhaustion. It was clear she had been abandoned. But what Alexander didn't know yet was that her past held secrets darker than the night he had found her. And as the storm raged outside, the first threads of a love story, one neither of them could have imagined, quietly began to weave. Together, the first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Alexander's mansion, casting a warm golden glow across the guest room. The young woman stirred beneath the plush blankets, her eyelashes fluttering as she slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, she seemed disoriented, scanning the luxurious room with confusion. Then, her gaze fell on Alexander, who sat nearby in a leather armchair, sipping coffee and reading the morning news on his tablet. When he noticed her awake, he set the tablet aside. "You're safe," he said softly, offering a reassuring smile. "I'm Alexander. What's your name?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "Lila," she murmured, her voice timid, as if speaking her own name felt foreign. "Well, Lila," Alexander said, "you're welcome to stay here as long as you need. I found you last night in terrible shape." "What happened?" Lila's eyes clouded. She looked down, avoiding his gaze. I don't want to talk about it," she whispered. "Not yet." Alexander didn't press her. He could see the raw fear in her posture, the way her hands trembled when she reached for the glass of water he'd placed on the nightstand. He simply nodded. "That's fine. You rest. When you're ready, I'll listen." As the day went on, Alexander instructed his house staff to give Lila fresh clothes and a warm meal. Watching her eat, he realized just how long she must have gone without proper food. There was something incredibly delicate about her, yet he could sense an underlying strength, buried beneath layers of pain. Later that afternoon, Lila stood by the massive window in the sitting room, staring out at the sprawling gardens. She spoke without turning to him. "No one has ever helped me before, not without wanting something in return. Why? Why did you stop for me?" Alexander stepped closer, his tone sincere. "Because I saw someone who needed help. That's all. You don't owe me anything." For the first time, Lila smiled faintly, a small, cautious smile, but one that hinted at the possibility of trust. Alexander didn't realize it yet, but that fragile smile was the first brick in the bridge forming between their worlds. The next few days passed in a rhythm neither Alexander nor Lila had expected. She spent her mornings walking in the gardens, her afternoons sketching quietly in a corner of the library, and her evenings at the long dining table, where Alexander would gently draw her into conversation. One evening, as a soft rain pattered against the glass walls of the conservatory, Alexander finally asked the question that had been on his mind since the night he found her. "Lila, what happened to you out there?" She froze. The teacup in her hands trembled slightly, the steam curling around her face like a ghost. Her gaze drifted somewhere far away, not the garden, not the rain, but deep into memories she had tried to bury. "I was engaged," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "He wasn't rich, but he wanted to be, and he found a way, by marrying someone else, someone with money. Me, I was just an obstacle." Alexander's jaw tightened, but he let her continue. "One night, he told me we were going for a drive. I thought it was to talk things over, but instead, he stopped the car on an empty road. told me to get out. Then he drove away. Just like that, left me there. My phone, my bag, everything was gone. Her voice cracked, and she quickly looked away, embarrassed at her own vulnerability. Alexander leaned forward, his tone steady but laced with anger. He abandoned you like trash. But you're not trash, Lila. You're worth more than he could ever understand. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain grew heavier, and Lila's fingers tightened around her cup. Then, she looked at him with cautious eyes. Why do you care, Alexander? Men like you don't just care about women like me. He gave her a faint smile. Maybe I'm not like most men. Something shifted in her gaze, suspicion melting into curiosity, pain giving way to a flicker of warmth. It wasn't love yet, but it was the fragile beginning of something that could become far more. The rain had stopped by morning, but a strange tension lingered in the air. Alexander noticed at first the way a black sedan had been parked across the street for hours. The way a man in a cap seemed to be reading a newspaper, yet never turned the page. He didn't say anything to Lila, not yet. Instead, he had his head of security, Marcus, investigate. Within an hour, the report came in. It's him, Marcus said, his tone low. The ex-fiancé seems he's got debts. Big ones, and he's sniffing around again. Alexander's jaw tightened. Debts. Marcus nodded. Word is, he's trying to find her. Maybe to squeeze money out of her, or out of you. Alexander's mind raced. Lila had been through enough. He wouldn't let her get dragged back into that man's world. He instructed Marcus to double security and keep Lila under discreet watch. That evening, as Lila was curled up on the couch, sketching by the fire, Alexander sat across from her. He wanted to tell her everything about the man outside, about the danger, but he hesitated. She was just beginning to feel safe. Shattering that now might destroy the fragile trust between them. Instead, he asked Lila, do you believe in second chances? She looked up, her eyes meeting his. I think everyone deserves one, but only if they've truly changed. Alexander leaned back, watching her. And what about yourself? Do you believe you deserve one? She hesitated, a faint shadow crossing her face. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm ready to trust again. He didn't push her, but deep inside, Alexander made a silent vow. She would be safe. She would have her second chance, whether she believed in it yet or not. Outside, the black sedan was gone for now, but Alexander knew it wouldn't be the last time it showed up. It happened on a Thursday evening, just as the sun dipped below the city skyline and bathed Alexander's penthouse in a warm, golden glow. Lila had gone to the small rooftop garden, tending to the flowers Alexander had insisted she could make her own. She found peace there, her fingers brushing petals as if they were old friends, but peace didn't last long. The voice was cold, familiar, and it froze her in place. She turned slowly, and there he was, Ethan, the man who had once promised her the world, only to leave her bruised and broken, both inside and out. His tailored suit couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes. How did you find me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He smirked. You're not that hard to track down, sweetheart, especially when you suddenly start keeping company with billionaires. Word travels. I don't want to see you, she said firmly, trying to step away. But he moved closer, lowering his voice. You owe me. You walked out and left me to clean up the mess you made. Now, you're going to help me out of my mess. Before she could respond, a shadow fell over them. Alexander stood at the rooftop door, his presence like a storm rolling in. His gaze locked on Ethan, his voice deceptively calm. Is there a reason you're trespassing on my property? Alexander looked over at Lila, who sat in the corner, silently watching. Her eyes still held the storm from that morning. Barca continued, if we get ahead of this, control the story. It'll hit harder than any lawsuit. Alexander turned to Lila. This has to be your decision. Once you speak, you can't take it back. Lila inhaled slowly. If I tell the truth, everything, the night you found me, what I went through, I'm not just risking my privacy. I'm handing them my scars on a silver platter. He stepped closer, his voice low. Lila, they've already weaponized your past. If you own it before they can, you take away their power. Her jaw tightened. Then we do it. On my terms. The next day, Alexander called in a favor with one of the most respected investigative journalists in the country. Someone known for exposing lies and refusing to bow to pressure. The interview was filmed in a softly lit studio. Lila sat across from the journalist, wearing a simple navy dress. No glittering diamonds. No designer excess. Just herself. She told her story. How she had grown up in foster care, shuffled from home to home. How she'd been left on the roadside with nothing but a torn backpack. How Alexander had stopped that night, offered food and safety, and slowly given her the chance to rebuild her life. Her voice cracked only once. I didn't fall in love with a billionaire. I fell in love with a man who saw me when the rest of the world looked away. When the interview aired that night, it was like a lightning strike. Viewers flooded social media with messages of support. Hashtags like #WeStandWithLila began trending. Even critics had to admit nothing in her demeanor matched Ethan's poisonous claims. But as the tide turned, a shadow still loomed, because while the world was rallying behind her, Ethan wasn't finished. In fact, that same night, he called someone from a private number and said, "She thinks she's untouchable now. Let's see how she handles the truth she didn't tell." 2 days after Lila's interview aired, Alexander's estate was quieter than usual. The noise of reporters at the gate had died down, replaced by warm letters from strangers and care packages sent by people who believed in her story. Lila sat on the balcony, sipping tea, for the first time in weeks, feeling a sense of peace. That's when Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowning. "It's from my private security feed." A moment later, his expression changed. Shock, then anger. "Lila, you need to see this." On the screen was security footage, not from their home, but from a police archive. The clip had been emailed anonymously. In it, a much younger Lila, maybe 17, stood in the back of a small-town store. An officer was questioning her, while a shop owner pointed angrily. The grainy footage cut off before showing what happened next. Attached was a single sentence: "Ask her about the necklace." When Alexander looked up, Lila's face was pale. "That was years ago," she whispered. "I thought that file was gone." "Tell me," he said, voice steady. Lila hesitated, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't steal it. I found it outside the shop. I was going to turn it in, but before I could, the store owner accused me. The cop didn't believe me. They didn't press charges, but the town never forgot." She turned away. "That's why I kept moving. Every time I tried to start over, someone recognized me, whispered behind my back." Alexander reached for her hand. "Lila, this changes nothing for me." Her voice trembled. "It will for them. Ethan will twist it, make it proof that I'm a liar, and this time, they'll believe him." Downstairs, Marissa was already making calls. "We need to find out who leaked this. That footage isn't public, which means someone's pulling strings." Alexander's jaw set. "Then we pull harder." But Ethan wasn't just pulling strings, he was weaving a web. And somewhere in that web, Lila's entire reputation was about to be caught. The next morning, the city woke up to headlines splashed across every major gossip site. "Billionaire's mystery girlfriend caught stealing in her teens, the footage they didn't want you to see." The article was brutal. Ethan had not only leaked the security video, he'd provided a carefully edited backstory, claiming Lila was a career grifter who targeted wealthy men, twisting her time at the roadside into a calculated stunt for sympathy, suggesting she'd been quietly removed from multiple towns for petty crimes. It wasn't just online. By noon, the footage was looping on daytime TV panels, with experts dissecting her body language frame by frame. Lila sat in the library, staring blankly at the screen. "It doesn't matter what I say now. They'll think I'm lying." Alexander's voice was like steel. "Then we don't say anything. We show them." Marissa slid a folder onto the desk. "I've been digging into Ethan's businesses. He's been moving money offshore for months. But here's the kicker. He used the same shell company that owns that store in the video." Lila blinked. "You're saying he planted that?" Marissa smirked. "I'm saying he orchestrated the whole thing. That store owner in the footage on Ethan's payroll at the time." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "Which means we can prove the video's a setup. But if we just release that, he'll deny it, spin it, bury it." "So what's the plan?" Lila asked, her voice still shaky but sharper now. Alexander leaned forward. "We let Ethan think he's won. Then we invite him to a charity gala. My charity gala. Cameras everywhere. And when he shows up, we drop everything in front of the press, with witnesses and documents he cannot talk his way out of." For the first time all day, Lila smiled faintly. "You're talking about war." Alexander returned the smile. "No, Lila, I'm talking about ending it." The night of the gala shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers glowed like suspended constellations. Violins wove a silken backdrop, and the city's elite paraded in designer gowns and tailored suits. Alexander was the perfect host, charming, composed, and seemingly his smile concealed the quiet storm brewing beneath. Lila, in a sleek black evening dress, moved like shadow and silk beside him. Her hair was swept up elegantly, but her eyes carried a glint of defiance. The whispers that trailed her since the scandal seemed to bounce harmlessly off her tonight. At precisely 8:15 p.m., Ethan arrived. Smugness clung to him like cologne, his custom tuxedo gleaming under the chandelier light. He scanned the room, found Alexander, and smirked, the kind of smirk that said, "I've already won." "Alexander," he greeted, voice dripping with false warmth. "And Lila, braving public events, I see." Bold. Alexander chuckled lightly. "I wouldn't miss the opportunity to share a toast with my old friend." Ethan's eyebrow arched at the emphasis on old. The speeches began. Cameras flashed. Microphones hovered. Alexander took the stage, his voice resonating with the ease of a man used to commanding attention. "Tonight," he began, "we gather not only for charity, but for truth. And truth, my friends, is a rare and priceless commodity." The crowd leaned in. Ethan tilted his head, sensing something was off. Alexander continued. Many of you have seen a certain video circulating in the past weeks, a video meant to tarnish the reputation of someone dear to me. What you may not know is that this video was staged, funded, and executed by the very man who pretends to be its whistleblower. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras zoomed in. Ethan tried to laugh it off. Just talking to an old friend. Alexander's eyes narrowed. From the look on her face, I'd say this friendship is over. You have 30 seconds to leave before I make you regret showing up here. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. This isn't over, he warned, his gaze flicking between them. You can't protect her forever. When he was gone, Alexander turned to Lila. She was trembling, her breath shallow. Without a word, he wrapped his coat around her shoulders and led her inside. He didn't press her for details. Not yet, but his mind was already working, calculating. If Ethan thought he could just waltz into Lila's life again, he had no idea who he was dealing with. Alexander didn't sleep that night. While Lila rested fitfully in the guest bedroom, a room he had insisted she keep as her sanctuary, Alexander sat in his study, the glow of his laptop casting shadows across the sharp lines of his face. He wasn't just a billionaire because of luck. His fortune had been built on strategy, on reading people, on staying 3 steps ahead. And now, he would apply those same skills to one goal, protecting Lila. He opened a secure file system and typed Ethan's name. Within seconds, information started flooding in. Debt records, failed business ventures, unpaid loans, and something darker. A name appeared repeatedly in his recent transactions. Marek Voss. Alexander knew the name well. Voss was a lone shark with a reputation for violence. The kind of man who smiled while breaking someone's fingers. Alexander leaned back in his chair, a cold realization hitting him. Ethan wasn't here just for Lila. He was here because he was desperate. And desperate men were dangerous. By morning, Alexander had a plan. He called an old contact in the security industry, a man named Harrison who owed him more than one favor. I need eyes on Ethan Cole, Alexander said. Full surveillance. And Harrison, make it quiet. If he finds out, the whole thing could explode. Harrison chuckled. Understood. You always did like to play chess while everyone else played checkers. Meanwhile, Lila tried to go about her day as if nothing had happened, but her mind kept replaying Ethan's face, that smirk, that smugness, the way his voice dripped with possession. That afternoon, she found herself in the kitchen with Alexander. He was pouring coffee when she finally asked, "Why didn't you ask me what happened between me and Ethan?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because I trust you to tell me when you're ready. My job is to make sure he never gets the chance to hurt you again." Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that, without demand, without judgment. She didn't know it yet, but Alexander's quiet promise was about to be tested sooner than either of them expected. It started with a charity gala. Alexander had invited Lila to attend as his guest, partly to introduce her to his world, and partly to signal in front of the city's elite that she was under his protection. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers, golden table settings, and the hum of polite conversation. Lila wore a deep sapphire gown that Alexander had insisted on buying for her, and though she felt out of place among the designer dresses and diamond necklaces, she held her head high. For the first hour, it was perfect. They laughed, mingled, and even danced once. But then, Alexander excused himself to take a phone call, leaving Lila alone by the refreshment table. That's when she heard it. "Lila, well, isn't this a surprise?" She froze. Ethan stood just a few feet away, wearing a suit that was expensive, enough to pass in this crowd but with the unmistakable arrogance she remembered. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply, her voice low. "I could ask you the same thing. Last I checked, you were," he smirked, "a little too humble for this kind of event." People nearby were starting to glance over. Lila tried to walk away, but Ethan stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "You really think this guy cares about you? You're just his charity project." "I know you, Lila. I know everything about you." Her pulse quickened. "You don't know me anymore," she shot back. "Oh, I know enough," he said, his voice rising. "Enough to tell every single person here exactly where you came from. Trash on the roadside. Remember." The words hit her like a slap, but before she could respond, a shadow fell over them. Alexander had returned. His expression was calm, but his eyes were cold steel. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that made men like Ethan take a step back. Ethan smirked, but there was hesitation in it now. Just having a friendly conversation with an old friend. Alexander didn't move, but his presence was enough to make Ethan retreat a few steps. Still, the damage was done. Whispers were already spreading across the room. Alexander glanced at Lila, and without a word, offered her his arm. She took it, but as they walked away, she knew the night was far from over. By the next morning, the gala incident had exploded beyond the ballroom walls. A single, grainy cell phone video, Ethan leaning toward Lila, her tense expression. His raised voice had gone viral on a local gossip blog. The headline read, Mystery woman with billionaire caught in heated argument at charity gala. Who is she really? The article speculated endlessly. Was she a gold digger? A secret scandal from Alexander's past? Why was she arguing? In a setting where polite smiles were currency, and the cruelest of them all, she looks like she doesn't belong here. By noon, the tabloids had dug up a blurry photo of Leela from months ago, sitting on the curb in torn clothes the night Alexander had found her. They paired it with the gala photo, captioning it, "From Roadside to Riches, Billionaire's New Flames, Shocking Past." Leela sat in Alexander's penthouse, staring at her phone, her chest tight. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she whispered, her voice trembling. Alexander, pacing nearby, glanced over. "You've done nothing wrong. Let them talk." "It's not just talk, Alexander," she said sharply. "These people your world, they thrive on reputation. And now mine's ruined before it even began." He came closer, kneeling in front of her. "You're not defined by their opinions. You're defined by who you are, and I know exactly who that is." She wanted to believe him, but the doubt gnawed at her. "You don't understand. They'll use this to hurt you too. People will think you're reckless, naive. Investors, I don't care about investors right now. I care about you," he cut in firmly. Just then, his assistant burst in, holding a tablet. "You're going to want to see this." On the screen was a live morning show, and there, sitting across from the host, was Ethan smiling. He was telling a story, her story, but twisting every detail, painting her as manipulative, opportunistic, even dangerous. Lila's hands clenched into fists. "This has to stop," she said, her voice shaking, not with fear this time, but with anger. Alexander's eyes met hers, a silent understanding passing between them. Then he said quietly, "Then we'll stop him." Alexander didn't waste a second. Within the hour, his legal team was in his office, flipping through binders and scrolling through files. "This is blatant defamation," said Marissa, his lead attorney. "We can take Ethan down in court, but it'll take time, and you need something stronger in the public arena to kill the narrative."